Before we start this episode of Fangirls Going Rogue, we would like to dedicate this episode to the memories of two amazing women who have made impacts on our lives, Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds. Carrie, you will always be our princess, but more than that, our inspiration in how we live our lives. And Mrs. Reynolds, whenever it rains, we will hear you singing. Thank you for sharing your lives with us, and the Force will always be with you.
All team, give it everything you got.
It's time to fangirl flail with Fangirls Going Rogue.
Count me in. I don't think there's anything more important in the Star Wars universe than the fans.
News, discussion, and commentary from the female point of view.
You call this a diplomatic solution?
No, I call it aggressive negotiations.
With your hosts, Teresa Delgado, Tricia Barr, and Sarah Woloski.
Boy, am I glad to hear your voice.
Strap in, because this is where the fun begins.
I like the sound of that.
Welcome to episode 40 of Fangirls Going Rogue. It's been a tough time for us, but we are glad that we're here, and I am so happy to have this show to talk with my friends about everything going on in Star Wars. It's a cathartic experience for me. I'm Teresa Delgado. I'm one of your hosts, and with me are my two amazing friends, Sarah Woloski. How are you?
I am doing okay considering the news, but you know what? We've learned some things from the past news of the past year, and we've learned how to move on and really celebrate life rather than be sad.
I agree. And with us is the person that I'm looking to for guidance as we go through this episode, Tricia Barr. How are you doing? And that's a real question.
That's a real question. I am doing okay now. On Friday, there was blubbering, sobbing, sad Tricia. I got tasked with writing a tribute to Carrie Fisher that will be out in the Star Wars Insider, and it took every bit of me to hold it together. So I don't know why. I thought I talked to Skywalking Through Neverland and gotten it out of my system, and then I guess this is one of the stages, go back through it. So
Yeah.
it was hard, but it was a reminder of the many wonderful things that she is and has done beyond Star Wars. And she's a feminist. She was an advocate for mental health. She made it. She could explain bipolar disorder to an 8-year-old at a convention, and it made sense. I don't know. Did you guys follow her on Twitter? She used to tweet in those funny little
emojis.
Characters.
Yes.
And you could read them. They were real sentences, but I always felt like she was trying to let us know that that's maybe how she sees the world and wanted us to see through her eyes, or someone who was a little bit different, right? Because and it was amazing how some people could read it right away. So I used to love that.
No, I followed her on Twitter, and I mean, Tricia, you remember we had a goal to have her on our show, and we never really got to do that. And it's sort of all of this kind of highlighted for me just how precious life really is. Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting. We're going to talk about this more later, but people you've never met, I never got a chance to meet her, and the impact that they can have on your lives. But yes, her advocacy for mental health was probably one of the biggest things about her for me, aside from her being Princess Leia. So,
yeah. And you know, she's so just this has really reminded me of how well loved she is. Richard and I had the opportunity to go to Hollywood Boulevard, where fans had made her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and fans would gather around it, would take pictures. We participated in a memorial for her at the TCL Chinese Theater forecourt, and also Debbie Reynolds. She has her hand and footprints there as well, and it was raining that day. And I just took this picture of the hand and footprints of Debbie Reynolds with the rain, and there was flowers there. It was very poetic, but sad. But one thing we all learned is, once again, just celebrate life. And, you know, I brought some glitter. I had a ton of glitter that I brought and gave everyone a tube of glitter. And so a bunch of us threw the glitter in the air over Carrie Fisher's star as just a tribute to her. Because, of course, Carrie Fisher would glitter everyone that she, signed photos for.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's pretty amazing. I saw the pictures of the star, and I was just like, wow, that's so cool. Especially since I read an article recently about the stars on the Walk of Fame and how, like, the people who their names are on there, they literally, like, have to pay for it.
Yes.
And so it was
someone
crazy.
does.
Yeah. But, they're just not given to them, which I think is interesting. But I think one of the things that's come out of this is community and our ability to have people to talk to. I mean, we've always talked about that, about how great fandom is, but at a time like this, it was sort of the best thing because your friends around the world were there to talk to because you knew they were feeling the same pain you were feeling. Mm-hmm. And I know that was really helpful for me.
Definitely.
Did you guys talk with anybody on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or anything?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when the news broke, unfortunately, Richard and I were having brunch with like a family friend who we didn't really know that well. So it was like we got the news on our phones and we glanced at it halfway through brunch and we're like, oh no, and we couldn't say anything. So afterwards, we didn't really know what to do. Like, should we record something? Should we not? And then Tricia, you wanted to talk about it, and Skywalking Through Neverland was kind of almost ready to go out that week, so we just decided to record that night. And that, honestly, it really helped to talk about it right then, even though it started out kind of rough. I mean, all of our voices were cracking. We couldn't barely get through the first, part of it. But in the end, we all ended up laughing through our tears. So that really helped to work through it. And unfortunately for you, Tricia, I guess it didn't help. It only helped for a week and a half.
Well, yeah, I had to dig into places and really think about what she meant to everybody, because I'm not just writing a tribute for myself. I had to write a tribute for everybody and look at what she was trying to say. So but I will say that one of the first persons that reached out to me was one of my girlfriend's mothers, who really isn't a Star Wars fan at all. She just knows how important it is to me and just wanted to let me know. And the second person that reached out to me was my mom, who isn't a Star Wars fan particularly, but she knows what it means to me. So, and then, obviously all my Star Wars friends, we knew we were in the same boat, but I think there were people outside the world, even a couple coworkers stopped in and said, hey, sorry about the news. So there were people beyond the fandom who can appreciate her impact on our lives.
Yeah, I agree. But in the spirit of talking about community and the community that we're involved in, we have decided to make a bigger community for Fangirls Going Rogue.
Yes, we are so excited to announce a new Fangirls Going Rogue Facebook group because, as we all know, community is about you guys, the listeners. And so by creating a Facebook group, it's an opportunity to not just get to interact with us, but interact with each other. And that's what we want to foster, is something that we can all talk and just share as a big community. So we are excited to introduce this Facebook group, and all you have to do is search Facebook for Fangirls Going Rogue and look for the group to pop up and request to join, because it's a closed group.
It is a closed group. So yeah, you'll have to request to join, and then one of the administrators of the group will add you. Make sure when you join the group that you do look at the pinned post at the top. We do have a couple of rules. It's nothing crazy. You don't have to donate your firstborn child or something like that. But
wait a minute, we need to talk about this. What are the rules? No, just joking.
Yeah, so just make sure you read those rules. I think we have commenting turned off for them, because you don't have to comment that you acknowledge, but just we need you all to read those. But it's going to be a fun time for sure, and it'll allow us to do really cool things. And if anybody's thinking that it's just going to be Star Wars focused, it's not. It's everything geek focused, since we do have Fangirl Chat as a part of what we do. So anything and everything geeky goes.
Woohoo! And also, if we do need input for episodes in the future, we might be posting questions in that group. and then you guys can be part of the show.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we sort of started off talking about it, but we were lucky enough to be given copies from, I think it's Blue Rider Press, of the Princess Diarist, which is Carrie Fisher's latest book. And I'm going to turn it over to Tricia here to get us started.
Yeah, the kind of the timing crazy,
right?
That this is what you have in your hands. I was actually reading the book when I got news of her heart attack, and then I read a little bit more. And then the next day I put it down almost like I was afraid, because at one point in the book she says she wanted to tell her story before anybody else could. She wanted to get her story out, make sure her version was out in the world, which almost felt kind of weird. And
how far were you when you got the news?
I was just to the pages of the diary.
Okay. Wow.
So, that was, and it's interesting too, because you read this book. If you haven't read any of her books, this is a really cool book to read, because it does give you the story of who she was at the time that she was filming A New Hope. These pages are while she was writing, and it gives you a little bit of sense of what she overcame and how much she's just like everybody else. Would you guys say that you felt like when you were 19 or 18 or 17 that you kind of had those same emotions?
Absolutely. I can just remember, I know some of her paragraphs and stuff, like her thoughts and her feelings just warp all over the place, and she thinks about one thing in so many different ways. It's like, that's exactly how I was as a teenager. Like one little touch of a hand from a guy and I'd be thinking about it for days, going over and over in my head. And that's exactly how she was. And I just felt so much more connected to Carrie Fisher, the person.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I wasn't really like her at all. I was weird. I had a long-term boyfriend that I'd been with since I was a sophomore in high school, and like all kinds of stuff. And then on top of that, I was extremely career focused. I didn't do anything that would mess up my career. So I was a strange kid. But I loved it. I mean, there were so many points where I just started laughing, and Greg's looking at me like, what are you laughing at? And I'm reading him passages. I think one of the funniest ones, and I was actually rereading before we started recording, and it was when she's describing Richard Simmons and Bozo the Clown towards the beginning, and I just couldn't hold it in. And he looked at me like I was a crazy person.
Oh, one of the things I found most interesting was, I mean, you guys know that Harrison Ford is like my number one cutest guy ever, right?
Yes.
So apparently she thought the same thing. And it was just kind of gratifying to, read some of her thoughts on this, how he's just so stoic yet just beautiful, just a beautiful person in terms of his physical. No wonder they had such good chemistry.
She also was very honest about being the daughter of a broken marriage, and that was like the person she didn't want to be. Mm-hmm. And then the situation that led to her having feelings for Harrison Ford, which I loved that she dubbed Kerrison. So she acknowledged the shipping out there. She understood what it was. And this is a woman who... we know this is, ladies, you go to a party and guys want to give you drinks. And she was at a cast party and she got drunk, and she felt like Harrison Ford had saved her from potentially a bad situation. Now, it's all her point of view and how it happened, but in a way, he had become maybe something she had wanted all along, because she was absent of a father figure. So she doesn't really opine on stuff. She just lays out the story. This is how I felt. This is what I saw happen. This is why he became somebody that I could be attracted to, even though my gut said I never wanted to be that person. And that happens, to people all the time, where you end up in a situation where you're like, whoa, wait a minute. And then the diaries are essentially how she struggles with not being able to talk to anybody about that situation for all of filming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got some interesting diaries from my teenage and college years. Read an awful lot like this. So I'm just honestly like her courage to put her actual diary and her words out there for all to read. Like, I would never ever publish some of the stuff that I wrote, or all of the stuff that I wrote in, diary confidence. So I applaud her for her courage.
Yeah, and I mean, to publish it on this big of a scale. When I first heard about her publishing the relationship between herself and Harrison Ford, I'm not going to lie, I actually got a little bit annoyed because I was like, why would you do that? Why would you put that out there? And at a time when I believe he was married, wasn't he?
Well,
at the time?
Oh, yes.
When they were, yes.
Yeah. And I was like, I really hope she actually got his consent before she did that. So I didn't know whether she had or not. And if I remember everything correctly, she did tell him she was going to do it, but she didn't really get his consent to do it, right?
Yeah, I believe
she just told him.
I don't think it's her side of the story. I'm sure she's a smart lady. She knows what she can and can't get away with. And it's bridge under the water for both of them. Probably there were people who knew, and at some point she figured it would come out in some type of biography or something.
Yeah. So I was a little bit annoyed at first, and then I was like, well, whatever. People do that stuff all the time. And I think it was just the piece of me that comes from, a divorced home and stuff too, that I was just like, you don't talk about that stuff. But after reading the book and everything, I was like, okay, this isn't as bad as I thought it was in my head. So I'm really glad that I actually got a chance to read it, because I haven't read any of her other books itself. I just, have listened to a lot of the stuff that she said and have read some of the things I see like through the internet, but I haven't read like Wishful Drinking or
Postcards from the Edge is really good.
Yeah, I saw one person note after she died that if she had been a man, that some of her work would have been described as she would have been a great American author. And I think she really is a very intelligent storyteller who did a lot of things. I mean, there's certain, people say, oh, the great American authors are the ones that write books that aren't happy endings and are kind of go off on strange tangents, and that's kind of what the Princess Diarist is in a way, except it's real life, and that's the amazing thing. And I kept wondering at points, where's she going, because it seemed like it would ramble, but it was like she was kind of spiraling you into where she was and what the person and the events and everything that led to what she was writing. And I too would never put down any of my diary stuff. So but I think it's again part of her advocacy and helping people understand who they are. That's the hardest part. I saw an interview with her before I read the book, and they asked her, it was on a late night show, about that she would be talking about this. And she actually looked, she kind of pulled into herself physically and looked uncomfortable, because she still has to acknowledge it's one thing to put it in a book and hand it off. And
right.
You just, it's there. It's another thing to have to go on a talk show and talk about, they were like, did you tell him? And, she said, she even did an impression of him, something like he said lawyer or something like that, just to make sure. But I thought that both of them came off as just human, and it's so bizarre to think that really initially A New Hope wasn't about a love story, and if any potential it was going to be Luke to get the girl, Princess Leia, but then here they are in a relationship, and then everybody's, back in the day, remember people thinking they were shipping something, and actually what came out in the Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi was sort of a natural thing that had perhaps been born out of a relationship they had. So, when people look back 100 years, this will be information that they consider on how these stories came to be. So, and Star Wars is going to be, we talk about great stories from the past. This will be one of the great stories in the future when they talk about storytelling.
Yeah. How often do you get inside the mind of an actor or actress whom you admire so much and you wanted to know what they were feeling at the time. I mean, this is exactly what this is. And then she even writes on what it's like to be her now, 40 years later. Mm-hmm. So doing her celebrity lap dances.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like, I'm glad you bring that up about how often do we really get inside of the heads of people we admire. And it's really not that often because it's always after the fact, and it always ends up being a biography rather than an autobiography, or rather than something like this of getting to hear the journals that they actually wrote. And I think the one thing I really like about what she did is she actually documented her life. I think it's really cool that she did, and it would be really neat if more celebrities would do that and then be willing. I guess the trick would be they would need to be willing to actually release those. But it helps so much. It's just the timing of everything is just so weird.
Yeah.
It's like the book came out, she cleared her soul of some of this stuff, and then this happens and we lose her, and it's like... It's almost like it was not intentionally meant to be, but it was like her farewell. It's weird to me, like just the timing and the way things happen.
I would say that Carrie's, I can imagine her saying, "You can't make this bleep up." Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
In the way that it was, but the way her mind worked, it was really cool to see that in this time that she came back out into the world with The Force Awakens and the Star Wars reemergence, that she found a lot of productivity and found creativity and found new footing. I mean, she made this documentary, Bright Lights, that's been out on HBO, and she let people into their lives, and she, told the story, and she was working on the Guardian, what was the kind of this advice column where people would write in. So she was set to do another book. So she was on a roll. She was doing TV again and acting in other stuff. So this was kind of a reemergence for her, not just for Star Wars. So it was, she was at the top of her game, not at the bottom, which in some ways I almost wish that would be for me. Cause sometimes getting old stinks. So
well, and as she writes in her book, like she saw it happen to her mom, the slow decline of fame, and thought that that's what was in store for her, but not as Princess Leia. And honestly, I mean, she will always be with us. I finished reading this book last night, and it was very late. It was like 2 a.m. and I fell asleep, and when I woke up this morning, I had dreamed about Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia. So she'll always be with us.
You can hear her voice in it, right? Mm-hmm. So when just reading it, you can hear kind of how just the way she says things and the way she has her funny little bit of humor, but always is, even when she's being funny, can be very dry, but it still makes you laugh.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's so all of this, like, really for me, it was, how do these people that we have never met have such an impact on us? And it really got me thinking about that. This is the second time that I've had to think about that, because this would be, third time. This is the third actor that I have lost that just shredded me to tears.
Who are the other two?
Robin Williams.
Yeah.
And Alan Rickman. So they, it's, I think a lot of it has to do with the characters that these actors have played that have been involved in my life at some sort of giant pivotal moment. And I have been so attached to them and their work because of it. How and why do they have such an impact on us? And I had a friend on Facebook that was like, I don't get it. I don't get, celebrities are just regular people, and I don't get how people are this upset. And I just wanted to be like, because they were in our lives. They were in our households, like in our living rooms. And they sent us messages through their work of stuff that, for us to think about. And for her, I mean, it was like one of the first women we ever saw in like a non-damsel in distress role.
Right.
And it was just, it so has impacted our lives and the way that we live our lives today. And I just think it's so interesting. And I know there's one other person I can think of that I'm going to completely lose it when they pass away. And I'm so scared. But I mean, God willing, that doesn't happen for a long time because I will die. So, you guys probably know who that is, but, yeah, I just can't say it because I'll probably start to cry if I think about it. So he plays Woody. Anyway, okay.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm going to lose it.
Well, I mean, these people touch us, like you said, at a point in our lives where we're vulnerable, and we use... It's like a relatable thing. You relate to either the character or the celebrity or the person on a level that teaches you something or allows you to grow. And so I think that is why we get so broken up by that link. It's like a link to another human, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with, I expressed this in Skywalking Through Neverland episode. I'd never met her, but she still was very, very important to me. For just being an 8-year-old and seeing what I saw, what she made of the character. I mean, Princess Leia could have been something completely different had a different actress portrayed her. So yes, some of it's great directing, some of it's great storytelling, some of it's great editing, but a lot of it is her stepping into the shell of a character and making it into something. So this is why we applaud actors and actresses. And if you've done any acting, the thing with it is you have to be vulnerable. That's the hard part about doing it, is you have to let everything down and bring every emotion up. So all the hard moments you have to live them for a moment to be them. And so, they're letting us into their lives, and Carrie Fisher continued to let us into her life as she struggled with it. So she made it she made herself very real and accessible. And I think that's why it does hurt so much. And for Teresa and I, that was our first episode. We talked about Carrie Fisher and Princess Leia. We talked about the things that Carrie Fisher was outside of Princess Leia, including the script doctoring and all the storytelling. And we had on Kat Tabor, who voiced Princess Leia for video games and also did her in Detours and was the voice of Padme in the Clone Wars. And we talked to her. That was our first episode, was to talk about the influence of the character and the actress on our lives. And even then we knew she was a person separate from the character. So that's the kind of thing that if I were going to live my life and end it on a note, I would want to be beloved and missed as Carrie Fisher. And even if that meant some people saw me fall down and do some really stupid things in my life, but that's kind of what she did. She invited us in and let us go along for the ride. And I think the biggest lesson learned is, with that dog sitting next to her and her mother with her, is that it's always choose to ask for help if you need it. Always. Because she showed us that you sometimes need people to lean on. And that's a great lesson learned for everybody.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. And and then, so after all of this, of course, the conversation is going to have to come around to, well, what about the new films? And we know that principal recording and photography and all this stuff had been done for episode 8. That was already completed. And she'd finished everything. But what we didn't know is episode 9. And the rumor is that she was supposed to have a bigger part, or, okay, well, what are they going to do? And so some stuff came out. It was sort of coincidental, again, with the timing of everything. So they released an article, or it was on Nightline, where they showed a video kind of talking about the technology that went behind with ILM on creating Governor Tarkin and creating Leia in Rogue One. Mm. And then also there's this I'm ridiculous, article on theguardian.com where people started discussing, whether to digitally create her or write her out. And now there's petitions for certain things to happen, and it's just so interesting that all of this stuff is just one on top of the other on top of the other. It's like, can we just grieve for a moment? Everyone calm down. But so let's talk about the technology that was used for Rogue One, because I think it's really interesting that she got a chance to actually see the final scene and gave her blessing for it, and she approved of it, and it was all done with her permission, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. I mean, I think it's cool they even talked to her about it.
Yeah, there's legalities. You can't just digitally create somebody. Actually, there are laws that say you can't do that, so they did have to ask her.
Oh, wow. Now, I wonder, do they pay? Or is it just getting permission, sign on a dotted line?
I'm sure they paid her. She talks very much about protecting your worth and knowing your worth. I'm sure they paid her.
Okay. And do you know if her word hope, that was from recordings from 1976, 77?
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, that was from back in the day. Sort of like they did the Obi-Wan, the Alec Guinness talking to Rey in The Force Awakens. Same kind of thing where they clipped a piece of dialogue.
Okay.
I think the some of the interesting stuff is, of course, it probably didn't take as much work to create her as it did for creating Tarkin and Peter Cushing, and it's so detailed. It's crazy. Like, they had to watch scenes over and over to get things exactly right, but it was more than that. They actually found a life cast of his face from, I guess it's a film Top Secret, and I'm just like, oh my God. They had a cast of his face like Dante.
I thought they did a great job.
But how do you guys feel about moving forward with the story and what they should do? I mean, I think for me personally, it would be weird if they just completely like write her out and they're like, oh, something happened, blah, 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 she died or something, you know? Mm-hmm.
Well, there's been a lot of discussion just from around the community about the ethics of even doing what they did with Peter Cushing. Obviously, Carrie Fisher gave her permission, and there was permission from the estate of Peter Cushing. It's actually a very different dynamic, because you'd be talking about recreating an actress whose family and loved ones would have to see on TV and every ad. They, Star Wars runs all the time, all sorts of things where they would have to see where someone had created their loved one, but it's not really them. And so, that I personally don't think that, they talk about that Tarkin needed to be in the story. I absolutely agree with that. Tarkin needed to be in the story. Did he need to be portrayed by this effects? No, there were other characters that were in there, and the Guy Henry who played him did so much work and worked so hard that, I mean, we know that Peter Cushing isn't there, and I really think that there's a standard of considering whether we would like to have somebody recreate us and have that person do things that we didn't get to invest our effort and time into, and it's their interpretation of who we are. So I feel that this is very strongly, this isn't something that should be encouraged. And it wasn't, John Knoll says, oh, it's just something we did. I still think there was a lot of nostalgia that drove them to recreate Peter Cushing and not to really consider, why can't somebody else do this? Anybody can. I mean, it's just, for me, fundamentally, it's not a thing that I think we want to do going forward. And I believe that there will be an actors union will come in and fight this, because it could affect them in the future, because they could just say, well, you're not doing what we want. We'll just digitally create you at the end and you'll do. So then the actors can't even own the characters. I mean, he even, when you admit something's on a slippery slope, you've already gone over the slope, and he says it's a slippery slope in his interviews. So
who says that?
John Knoll, who was in charge of all this. So
right.
I think this is when you're saying you're on a slippery slope, that's when you need to climb back up and go, wow. And the other thing was, they didn't this was the surprise. So they didn't let anybody express feelings until they were able to wow us. So I think like they held that surprise because they didn't want anybody to be like, wait, should you be doing this? And there's been a lot of articles that have said, wait, should they have done this? So I'm not sure we'll see too much of this. It's very cost prohibitive too. So,
right. Well, it's one thing to do like in the Marvel movies where you had an older actor portray themselves as a younger person, like Robert Downey Jr. in Captain America Civil War.
Yes.
You know, he portrayed himself in that one scene as, you know, young 1980s, circa 1980s actor. But it was him that was acting it, and it was the digital effects that made him look younger. So I think that is fine. But now, Tricia, you're bringing up some really good points about doing that in the future for someone who's not able to contribute acting-wise.
Well, and I also think one of the things that we need to think about, too, is if we say that only... And we know that not only Carrie Fisher has played Leia, there's been other women who've embodied it, and animation has done it. And animation's different from CG. It's a different art form. But to say that only Carrie Fisher could be, or the kind of the embodiment of her in a 3D frame could be the character Princess Leia, that becomes something that is that, I don't know. Obviously, Carrie Fisher probably has... A lot of actors have statements on what can or can't be done with them, and then it'll ultimately be up to the state. And if the state is willing to do something, then that's their word too. But do we want to have that where they would limit themselves from using Princess Leia because they set the standard that it has to be a digitally created Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia? So, well, we don't want to use that character because it costs a lot of money to do it. So, you know, that's some of the things that are just, you know, people should think about when they consider it. And I know there are other people who just can't even bear right now the thought of seeing the character again. I know there are people who are like, I don't want to see it without her. And that's our grief coming out. But if you look at the kind of the way The Force Awakens had Han in the backstory, and we knew that Luke was going to be central to the story, it was a kind of a natural progression for Leia to take a role, especially knowing what the character did. And if we project out, she, you know, here we have Kylo Ren, her son, who's killed the love of her life, his father, her husband, and has done horrible things. And there's some moment in 9, perhaps, where they have to reconnect. Would you like animators to do that over the top of an actor, or would you like an actress, someone that is an amazing actress, come in and just kill that role, and as far as just playing it out and making it happen and making the emotions happen between the other actor who's there doing it with Adam Driver? So, you know, that's the hard part, and that's 3 years down the road. So our pain is going to be less, and at that point maybe we'll be celebrating what she was able to give another veteran actress, because that's what it's going to be. She talks about not having roles for older women, and that is another role for an older woman.
Give it to Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep. I know. Me too. Meryl Streep.
That was kind of the same thing I was thinking. If there was anybody who could do it, it would be her. And for obvious reasons, because she sort of did play her in at another time.
That's right. So, Postcards from the Edge.
Postcards from the Edge, which is a semi-autobiographical story. And in Bright Light, she says there's more things real in it than we could even imagine. So, you know, that's kind of the thing. So anyway, I opined. Everybody else talked.
I'm not saying do CGI by any means. I actually agree with what we were just talking about, which is Princess Leia is a character, and Carrie Fisher has been the embodiment of that character in the movies for us. But you're correct. There are other women who have played her, and they're just as much Carrie Fisher. They're just as much Princess Leia to me as Carrie Fisher is. And it's sort of the same thing with Anakin Skywalker. I mean, Matt Lanter is just as much Anakin as Hayden Christensen was, and at sometimes better. And then also with Ewan McGregor and the different life stages of Obi-Wan. And now we're about to see a whole another life stage of Obi-Wan. And it's not even going to be Ewan McGregor or James Arnold Taylor. It's going to be Stephen Stanton. You know, so I
and
would
Han Solo and Lando Calrissian and all of them.
Yeah. And so I would be okay with it if they recast it. But my only caveat to that is get somebody freaking amazing, like Harry Potter has done. Like, dig deep and, you know, dig really deep with your pockets of money that you have and get somebody that is going to knock it out of the park. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My most important thing is I don't want the third episode of the original trilogy and the third episode of the prequel trilogy both kind of shortchanged their female characters. And for as much as Carrie Fisher has fought for Princess Leia and for talking about storytelling about women and how to make it better, I would hate for her death to end up this character shrinking instead of being something that it could be in the story. So that's my, because when people look back at it, they'll only see that that the character shrinks. They won't have, will have the tie of the death, but this story is going to stretch way beyond us. And there are a lot of people who are Star Wars fans who are only Star Wars fans from The Force Awakens or just started in Rebels or just started in the Clone Wars, and they don't have that attachment that we do. And so it won't be as hard for some of us. It will be hard, but I will boldly look whoever wants to tap, because let me tell you, anybody who takes the role is going to be darn brave to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm with you. I think I think the fans would embrace a new actress much more than they would a digital representation of Carrie Fisher. So I think that should happen. And then as for episode 8, I honestly am looking forward to what we will see of Carrie Fisher. I know it's probably going to be really hard. We're going to be watching this movie a year after, you know, her actual death, and it's
almost exactly.
Well,
yeah,
they're just going to have to give me a handkerchief.
Yes.
Well, that's kind of what's going to happen.
Yeah, I know. Like, you were scheduled, Tricia, to see Rogue One that evening of the day Carrie Fisher died, and you couldn't do it.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Yeah, no, I can see why.
I did it eventually, but it took me about a week to get the kind of the gumption up. But you know, again, we'll be at a year when we see this, and you know, the things that I regret are not being, because you know they didn't have Mark Hamill on the stage to do a lot because of his role in 7. I was really looking forward to the Carrie and Mark show.
Yeah,
and that, you know, he said he would do anything to make her laugh, and they've laughed a lot. And I was looking forward to them just doing the press tour and being them. So that kind of stuff we're gonna miss, but we're gonna see, you know, some great things. And I think she was growing confident in herself again, and that was going to shine in that story.
Well, you know what I think would be really awesome, and I don't know if they'll do it, but I'd love to see Billie Lourd be more a part of 9 somehow. I mean, I knew she was just in there like really briefly,
she had a bigger role in 8. That she said that she has a bigger role in 8. So
maybe she'll have a bigger role in 9. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, and Billie, I think, she's the one that when all this happened, I just wanted to hug her or something. And then, you know, there's the rest of her family and what they're going through too. So obviously, you know, you're trying to be ultimately respectful of what they need and what they want out of this situation, because they're the most important people out of all of this. When we take back all our fan stuff or whatever's right for them, because one of the lessons of Carrie Fisher's story that she's talked about in her life is that sometimes Star Wars didn't always do right by her as a person, and you know, being objectified. She struggled her whole life with being objectified. She talks about it in the Princess Diarist. And so let's just make sure we do right by her family and those people ultimately, then to putting past all the things that we want as Star Wars fans. So ultimately, I hope they get to have a voice.
Yeah. I would just like to kind of close this out, unless anybody has anything else they'd like to say, with it's so fitting that she was buried in a giant Prozac pill.
I saw that and laughed. And thank you for that laugh, because I was like, man, she just right to the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I love about it is that her daughter and her brother just know her so well that they were like, well, we can't find anything that we think she would actually like. So she got this once. Let's just use that.
They said it was like her most favorite item in her
Yeah.
So yeah, God bless her. And one of the things about how I felt like sometimes she was like a girlfriend that you needed. And I had some girlfriends that were a little bit older than me growing up, and when I was in my 20s and early 30s, who sort of gave me life lessons. And one of them is sometimes you don't feel good about yourself, and sometimes you're just going to have to get help. And that's kind of Carrie's Prozac sign there. So don't worry about it. She, she got to do awesome things, and sometimes you need help from pharmacies.
Oh.
As my friend, the dear departed Princess Leia, said to me once, take your broken heart, make it into art. Thank you for it.
Says Meryl Streep at the Golden Globes.
That was so cool.
I love that she brought that. But they've never honored an memoriam for actors ever.
At the Golden Globes, they don't do it.
Oh,
yeah, they don't do.
I was not prepared for that.
I wasn't either, because they said they don't do it, and then they did it, and I was like, "Wait, no, that's not fair," because I was not ready for that. So
no, I'm sitting here on the couch.
Yeah,
like, nah.
Beautiful, but I was not prepared. No.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's move on to some cool stuff that's floating around. All right, Rebels has come back, and I'm assuming you guys have both watched it.
Yes.
So if you haven't watched Ghost of Geonosis, hit pause, because we're going to talk about it just a little bit. We're going to talk about some of the voice actors that are coming onto the scene and stuff like that. So we may potentially spoil something for you, but thoughts on Saw is what I really want from you guys right now. Thoughts on Saw, because, okay, I'm going to go last. I feel like I have to go last because of the thoughts.
Well, you can really see, in Ghosts of Geonosis, you can really see his tendency toward paranoia.
Tell me what I want to know, Buck. What Imperial secret was worth the lives of my team, my friends?
Easy, Saw.
We've all got questions for him.
Saw, he's unarmed.
You know better than anyone. We can't underestimate these things.
A fun aside, I actually read the Rogue One visual dictionary last night, part of it, and there's some interesting info that mentions Saw Gerrera and the Death Star. And if you put the pieces together in the visual guide plus watching Ghosts of Geonosis, you realize that the Death Star was originally being constructed on Geonosis by Geonosians, and it was Saw Gerrera and his team that came to investigate that made the Empire move all the actual Death Star being created. They had to move the Death Star to a different planet to finish construction. So I thought that was interesting there. So we saw kind of repercussions.
Yeah, we kind of knew that, a little bit of that from Catalyst, and then also from the Rebels Recon, which if you haven't watched it, watch it, because Pablo does talk about that. Or no, maybe it's not Pablo who talks about it. It's one of the creators talks about that, and about them having to move the Death Star from Geonosis probably right when the hyperdrive was installed for them to be able to move it.
Right.
But yeah, Tricia, thoughts on Saw?
Well, just building on what Sarah said, it's obvious that they've been thinking about the character. Apparently, he had more of a role in the original creation of Rogue One, and then they cut it back somewhat. Remember, it was Bald Saw, and then in the movie we see flashback as Bald Saw, and in the present he's got a head of hair. So, but we all know he has all these injuries, so things have happened to him. But this is sort of this iteration of there's a check and balance. He worked with the Jedi, but he's definitely not embracing kind of their mentality anymore. He's in the presence of Jedi. It feels like it pulls him back, but maybe without some grounding, he's gonna, and more things happen to him. He's just holding on to a memory, and I see that memory of Steela kind of turning him insular.
Is that your sister?
Steela. This is all I have left of her.
I thought the 2 episodes were amazing. And I said that I thought they were going to bring it, that they were holding on to something. They were kind of getting to it. So, wow, it was a great episode. Not only even great episode, they had a leader of a Star Destroyer who was another Black woman. So we have 3 Black women who've had Star Destroyers under their command. Rogue One could have gone a little bit more with that on their Imperial side, but that's a different issue. I almost felt like that this episode was a repudiation of the white maleness of the Empire in Rogue One, and in the way that it did that. And so, it was a really neat episode. And Teresa, thoughts on Saw?
I wanted to punch him in his face. Oh my God. I was just like, and I liked Saw in Clone Wars, and then the Saw that we saw in Rogue One, I was like, okay, you're kind of a little weird, dude. And then in this, I was just like, seriously right now? This is seriously happening? And he puts the gun up to the egg, and I was like, oh my, if I was there right now, you would not be standing, sir. We would have a problem. Like I got so feisty on the couch. I was just like, ah. And then with Hera right there, I was like, Hera, hit him.
Hera certainly dealt with him, though.
Yeah, she did. And I just wanted somebody to be stronger. And then all we got was Ezra being like, you can't do that. And I was like, seriously? I was like, oh my God, animate me and put me in there. But the episodes were great. See, I love when episodes get me like that. That's when I know that they're good, is because I get so emotionally involved. And the ones that I don't get me emotionally involved are the ones that I'm like, yeah, that wasn't that great. And I know a lot of people, they'll say like, oh, well, I didn't like it because it made me mad. And I'm like, but that's why you should like it.
Yeah.
Because it made you mad, because it made you feel something, because it reached into you and it said, here, take that. And so it was so good. And Click Clack was just amazing. And if a Geonosian can be cute, he was.
I know. He was like the cutest Geonosian ever.
Yeah. Well, I think that was mostly his voice with Matt Wood.
And what about the fact that Kanan and Ezra are bomb bad powerful now, especially Kanan.
I don't get that.
Well, I think there's something to it, because they never do anything lately, especially when Dave Filoni's overseeing things. He doesn't let him just do things. So there's something to that. I mean, we had the Bendu, and I feel like something's gonna happen. So I don't know. It was just it was cool.
And he takes that bridge, and he's like, I'm just going to hold this here for you.
And by the way, almost the full Force theme played for that moment when Kanan was breaking off the bridge.
Get across!
And I was thinking of that when I'm like, wow, they're going full on Force here. That was crazy. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was really good. So with all of that in mind, though, we do have something that is coming, which I mentioned it just a few moments ago, but Stephen Stanton is going to be playing Obi-Wan. And at first, I almost felt offended and that it wasn't James Arnold Taylor. And then I'm like, but maybe there's a reason. And so I'm just going to need those episodes to show up pretty quick, because I need to understand why. And I love Stephen Stanton, and he's such a great voice actor, but I'm just like, why?
Yeah, I felt bad for James Arnold Taylor. He actually took a break from Twitter because people were asking him about that. He's like, I don't know, but I'm going to take a break because I don't want to talk about this right now.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't use Cat either for Leia. And I don't know if that's just a sign of things being different or, you know, that it was something that kind of took me aback, especially since obviously we can't be attached to actors as them, but, you know, he was a big part of the community, especially from the Clone Wars. So it was kind of hard to, I mean, I like Steven Stanton. He does amazing things for so many fans, but it was like, okay, weird. That was just, maybe they'll talk about it someday. I'm sure someone will ask somebody.
Right.
That'll probably like the
press
first
event.
question. Yeah, the first question at the Star Wars Rebels panel. Why did you know something?
Yeah, exactly.
I'll do it.
We'll chamber that one.
I'll go. I will be ready, and I'll be the first one at that mic.
There you go.
So
you're gonna have to beat some kid down. You know it's.
Okay, no, that's what we're gonna do. We're going to find a kid and we're going to pay them to say this question.
To ask Dave Filoni?
Yeah, that's what we're going to do.
Nice. Okay, I'll get Eliza on it.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Yeah, but he would tell her in her ear and then she wouldn't tell him.
That's true. That's true.
We'll ply her with Girl Scout cookies.
It hasn't worked yet.
No.
Can we talk about Funkos?
Yeah, I love Funkos. Let's get funky and let's talk some Funkos.
I was like crazy excited. They had a Twitter poll asking about favorite Legends characters.
Yeah.
Star Killer just beat out Jason and Jaina.
Oh.
But they did say that there will be Legends Funkos in their Twitter feed. So.
Oh.
I like this. I like that they're acknowledging that these characters existed for people and that they love them. And I will buy all of your Legends Funkos.
Now, will there be Legends Itty Bitties?
Oh, don't even. That would just be. I would buy them all too.
Well, you never know. I mean, so working for a Hallmark store is an interesting journey. But what I find interesting is some of the characters that they've been releasing lately. And I thought it was kind of weird that they brought out Phasma when they brought her out like so far after the movie had come out. And then they just brought out Akbar. So if you don't have him, go and try to pick him up. He is out. He's very cute. Very, very cute. But there are, you know, other Star Wars ones coming this year other than just those.
I'm so exciting.
So cool. I love Funko because of the things that they do and the characters that they make. And whenever you go shopping for them, there's always something new. I didn't even realize that there were Friends ones until the other day. I saw one at the store at my comic book store.
Friends ones?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And they just did Go More Girls also.
Oh.
That's my favorite things, to go to the bookstore and go to the Funko section and see what new ones they have. But
how many do we have?
I couldn't even tell you. I could not tell you because I don't have them all out. I have several in boxes. I can tell you how many I have in this room that I'm in if somebody else wants to talk for a minute because I can count them real quick.
I can talk. I got a picture from my brother-in-law who actually was one of his nieces who had it was a stack. She's 19 and it was a stack all the way to the top of her ceiling and it was just Marvel Funkos, Marvel Funkos.
Gosh.
So, you know, these are things. And is Teresa still counting?
Well, I can stall for her. I have one, and it's Robin Hood from Disney. The fox. That's it. I have itty bitties.
I have 25 in this one room, and I have 4 in the living room right now that need to come in here. So.
See, I've stayed away from Funkos.
I have 5 at school.
Oh wow!
You don't like the eyes, right?
I don't.
And now they've got the wobblers that have. I have the Jinn one that they have better eyes.
Yeah, they do. They do. The wobblers are cute, and I can almost get some with my Disney points. But I like my itty bitties because they're for, you know, I have a thing with plush, and they're plush.
Yep.
And I love them.
Yeah, and I have every Star Wars itty bitty that's ever been released, including the Comic-Con exclusive. Oh, just kidding. 30 in this room.
Wow.
Still counting.
My goodness.
I know sometimes I feel like I need to focus. Itty bitties or Tsum Tsums.
Right.
I'm trying to decide. So
I definitely have gone to itty bitties over Tsum Tsums, and it's for much of the same reason as Sarah in that department, that you can't really see any of the detail on them because they all lay on top of each other.
Yeah.
And so you can't really see anything, and especially with the humans because they all have the same face.
Yeah.
So the people themselves look weird. And so with itty bitties, they're standing up and you can actually see their outfits. And it's really cool.
That's what I like.
All right, so let's move forward. We were talking about the Golden Globes earlier, and I just want to mention really quick that I am actually really excited for this. Donald Glover won 2 Golden Globes for his show on FX called Atlanta, and he won one for actually making the show and then another one for being in it. And he talked with USA Today at the Golden Globes, and he said a couple of things that I thought was interesting. They said they asked how he was doing, how he was preparing to play Lando. And he said, I'm not getting to eat anything enjoyable for the rest of my life. He said, Lando's a big deal to me. It was literally the first toy I ever got. When you have something that's kind of iconic where people pay attention to it, it's hard because you want to live up to the expectation. But all you can do is live up to your own. And Star Wars is really high. He said, mostly, he added, I really just want to have fun. The directors, Christopher Miller and Phil Lord, they're amazing. I love the guy who is playing Han, so Alden Ehrenreich. And he said, it's going to be a good time. It's going to be fun. I'm getting ready to just have fun with those guys. So this one feels like it's going to be a lot more lighthearted, so I'm kind of excited about that. But I just love he's like, I'm never going to be able to eat fun food ever again.
have you guys seen Atlanta?
No, I have not.
I've never seen it.
Okay, well, check it out.
Okay.
It's really good. Yeah,
right, I'm in a flash mode right now, but yeah,
you're in a flash mode. Well, this is not something. I mean, it's certainly not genre. It's just about people in Atlanta, but it is really, it's really good.
You're selling it, Tricia. You're selling it.
No,
you're selling it.
But
are Riley and Bethany in it?
No, they're not. But it's about family, and it's about trying to find yourself. And there's some really crazy stuff that happens in it. I can't do it justice, so you just have to watch it. And trust me, you'll like it.
Okay. All right. Well, I should trust you. All right. Well, that brings us to the last news story. And the news that broke hours ago is that George Lucas's museum finally has a home. And it is Los Angeles. I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Okay, Sarah.
Yes.
Los Angeles literally has everything in it. Where are they going to put it? I mean, like,
okay,
so going to tear down another building or kill some trees? I mean, like, you don't have that many trees.
Well, what's cool is, okay, so I went to USC, which is in downtown LA, and they have the campus there, and right south of USC, within walking distance, is this beautiful rose garden. There's a museum, and it's called LA's Exposition Park, and this is where the Coliseum is, where the '84 Olympics were held, and John Williams was there, and I've been there. So what's really cool is it's going right next to the Coliseum, and the way the design is, it is actually built up so that most of the museum will lie on like the second and third floors, it looks like, although it's really hard to tell what a floor is on this crazy building here. And it's going to go in what is currently a parking lot that's really ugly. So, and it's going to include a bunch of land that people can sit on, like nice parkland. So I'm really excited about this. I know several Skywalkers who are like, okay, need to work there and relocate to LA. There's already one, I know of a Skywalker, Margaret Mays. She works in San Diego at a museum and is seriously considering, moving here and trying to throw her hat in the ring for a job. So I think that's really cool. So, of course, there will be a meetup once this thing opens. So come on down, y'all.
Come on down, y'all.
I'm glad it finally has a home.
Yes. So,
because the people who turned it away are just crazy. And not because it just because what he's giving, this stuff is going to be amazing. It's not just Star Wars. It's like pop culture. It's going to be like a museum that people go to in 1,000 years.
Yep.
If we make it through another 1,000 years, but it's amazing what is going to be in this thing, just for what our world represents, and in the century specifically. So.
Yeah, it's going to
awesome.
include, let's see, about 10,000 paintings and illustrations, including works by Rockwell, N.C. Wyeth, and Crumb, along with Hollywood memorabilia from, of course, Star Wars and the 10 Commandments, to name a few, which is really amazing. And knowing George Lucas's taste, having been to Big Rock Ranch and Skywalker Ranch, yeah, he has really good taste. So this stuff is going to be amazing.
It's going to be like the modern day Louvre. I mean,
yeah,
it's kind of crazy cool. So I'm excited it's finally got a home and it can be somewhere.
Yes. And hey, who knows? In 2019, you may be looking at a George Lucas Museum opening and Star Wars Land opening right here in LA, right in our own hometown.
I can't believe it. Right here where we live.
Just like Meet Me in St. Louis. I was just thinking of the Meet Me in St. Louis quote.
Your hometown is Austin.
I know, but I moved here.
Just gentle reminder.
I'm a California girl now. I'm sorry.
You were so quick to abandon. You know what? Texas doesn't need you anyway. Jeez. Okay, tangent. Okay, so on our last episode, we started to talk about the Rogue One cast, but we didn't get through everybody, so we are going to finish that up today. But really quickly, I just wanted to give y'all a box office update on Rogue One. As of January 9th, so this past Monday, it continues to blast through box office hurdles as it reaches the $900 million mark in just 26 days, as it notches up a fourth weekend at number one here in North America. And it is now open in China with its $56.4 million weekend, including that $31 million opening in China. The film now sits in the number 5 position for 2016, closing the $52 million gap to The Jungle Book. $86 million will take it through the $1 billion barrier, a hurdle even more likely to be broken in the next 2 weeks now that China comes into the equation. The film is currently the 41st highest grossing film of all time, just $5 million behind Shrek 2. Reaching $1 billion will propel it into the 28th position and consequently make it the 28th film to cross $1 billion. And this is coming from Deadline, but I'm reading it off of JediNews.co.uk, written out by Mark Newbold. So just all those things to kind of keep in mind.
The Force Awakens was the 10th biggest movie of this year, past year, 2016. So you think Disney made some money?
Yeah, in fact,
pretty sure.
I would like to note that in the top 10 all-time domestic movies. Whoa, that puppy's excited.
I didn't even know that puppy was in the room.
Okay. All right. So in the top 10 all-time domestic movies, that's not adjusted for inflation, Star Wars movies make up 4 of the top 10. That's amazing.
That really is amazing.
Force Awakens at number 1, and then we have number 8, Rogue One, number 9, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and number 10, the original Star Wars.
Woo!
All right, but let's concentrate on Rogue One now, because last episode 39, we had gone through 3 of the actors portraying characters in Rogue One. So now we will continue with Diego Luna, who of course plays Cassian Andor. So we're going to go through these actors and look at their biographies, and really, I mean, these actors are heroes in their own right. So here we go. Diego Luna was born in Mexico City, Mexico in 1979. So only 2 years before me. And his father was actually an acclaimed set designer in Mexico, and his mom is a British costume designer. So father Alejandro Luna, mother Fiona Alexander, but she actually died when Diego was 2. However, Diego grew up in entertainment. He was a child actor. So he's had some really interesting roles, mostly in Mexico at first. He played in Antonietta as a child, and then he was in telenovelas and soap operas. So he was in El Abuelo y Yo and El Premio.
Do you need me to do that for you?
Sure. I can say Y tu mama también. I can say that.
Okay. Yeah, he was in a soap opera called El Premio Mayor. So there you go.
Thank you.
I'll donate my excellent Spanish Mexican skills.
Okay. Thank you. And then I think he crossed over into, the American consciousness with Y tu mama también, because I know a lot of Americans saw that. And then Frida. Did you guys see Frida?
Yep.
Okay.
I was sort of forced to.
Oh. Well, what did Diego play in that?
I don't remember. I just have seen the movie. I feel terrible, but I wasn't really aware of him until he was going to be in Rogue One. So,
okay.
But I've just seen it. So.
Okay. Well, he is a singer as well. I know he's sung in various things, but also he's done voice work, like in Open Range, and he was in Dirty Dancing Havana Nights.
Yeah.
Did anyone see that one?
No.
You didn't?
No.
Oh, man.
I didn't either.
I when you think about the fact that he lost his mom early, and then that scene where he says to Jin, I've lost a lot too.
Yeah.
And you're thinking he's sort of kind of brought it. But
tapping into that.
Have you guys seen the guy who posted and Diego Luna shared it that his dad, he took his dad to see the movie, and he's like, why? Let him keep his Mexican accent? What's up with that? He gets to be the hero? What's up with that? So I thought that was just really cool that he gets to be essentially who he is, in the story. The story didn't make him change his accent. He got to be who he was. So I kind of love that part.
One of my favorite things that he has ever said is when he was on Ellen and he was talking about how he always wanted one of those big Power Wheels cars, and his dad couldn't afford it. And so he said, oh yeah, they don't have those in Mexico. They don't bring them here. Which is such a thing to say. And then Ellen gives him one and he gets in it and he's driving around and he's all
small enough to get in it. That was very cute.
That's the crazy part, is how big of a Star Wars fan he is. Mm-hmm. It just how every time he talks about Jabba the Hutt.
Jabba. I've always wanted to touch him. The texture of Jabba is something I need to discover.
Jabba, not Jabba. And when he says it, and just, now there's people trying, I believe Mary Franklin even tweeted back to the people that they're trying to, instead of getting Slave Leia's posing with Jabba the Hutt this year, that they will have Cassian Andor cosplayers pose with Jabba the Hutt for celebration. So that would be that would be kind of interesting to see a little bit different take on that iconic pose.
Oh, that's cute. Well, let's go into what Diego Luna has done socially. He's played some social roles, including in Milk. He played Harvey Milk's boyfriend, Jack Lira. He was also the director of the 2014 biopic Cesar Chavez, who is, of course, the American labor leader. And he was in The Book of Life, which he voice acted the lead character.
Mm-hmm. Book of Life is really good. I liked it.
Okay. I haven't seen that one either. But he sang with her there.
Yes, he did.
How was he? Was he good?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's good.
I will stay by you, even when we fall. I will be the rock that holds you up and lifts you high so you stand tall. And I won't let you fall.
I mean, come on, he's Mexican.
I still think we need the Star Wars musical. What's not happening here with all these amazing singers in Star Wars?
Yeah. Poe, Tricia.
Rey. And all of them
That's
could
true.
Sing.
That's true.
All of them. It'd be crazy. And Boyega, when him and Daisy Ridley did their little rap thing that they did. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was cute. All right, so back to Diego. He actually started a production company with his best friend, Gael Garcia Bernal. And they have been actors together since childhood. The production company is called Cañana Films, and their whole goal is to break ground in Mexican cinema with socially conscious films. So I thought that was really brave of them to do.
Mm-hmm. It's very cool.
And then also as part of what he's done, he's involved himself with the human rights organization Washington Office on Latin America, and that has challenged arms trafficking and helped out immigrants. So he's really sticking his neck out for the little guy, essentially.
It's almost like they typecast him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which Star Wars does a lot. So a lot of times the people are sort of what the characters become in a grander way. So he hasn't shied away from talking about any social issues in his press rounds. So
no, he hasn't. He did something really cool too at the Golden Globes. He actually spoke Spanish to the audience.
Good evening, everyone. Silencio, por favor. Buenas noches a todos.
And I thought it was so funny because he's like, you know what I said, right? And I'm like, actually, I did. But
Silencio.
I could actually hear like the other Mexicans in the room going, like, yeah,
Aww.
Because you heard little cheers, and I'm like, that was Gina Rodriguez. Like, I just knew it. So it was pretty cool. I was so happy that he did that.
So did anybody notice anything in the visual guide about the character Cassian Andor?
I love the look of it. Oh my God, the visual guides are so great. I actually get stuck on the pages in the visual guides about planets and stuff, and then I forget to read the rest. And so I sort of get stuck.
Like the Galactic map?
Oh, well, yeah, and that's a whole, separate book in and of itself. But just like what DK is doing is just so cool with these visual guides. They're almost like something you actually need to read after you see the movie. Like it's a necessity because it fills in so many gaps.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just say what I noticed on Cassian's page, and that is that he has an actual pill in his jacket on the placard on his left shoulder. It's called the Lullaby Suicide Pill.
Oh.
I know. So in case he's ever, taken by the Imperials, he can just pull that out and, never divulge any info. Poor guy.
Wow. Tells you how extreme he is, huh?
Yes. Yes, it does. And how much information he has.
One of my favorite pages in the visual guide is the Chirrut Imwe page.
Mm-hmm.
You get a lot of Force information, a lot of information about just that thread and Jedha, and even the pages on Jedha. I don't know, that all that world building stuff was really cool. The Jedha stuff, definitely. And I think we're really lucky because all these actors seem to have brought something. It's sort of a running theme when they are doing their press. It's like, yeah, the character I kind of had to build or put input in to. Donnie Yen actually suggested the blindness for Chirrut. And his family's so cool that his son and daughter cosplayed as Chirrut, and his daughter was a stormtrooper for Halloween. So, this is like a family. And born in Hong Kong and lived in Boston, his mother is a grandmaster in Fu style, Wu Dang, Quan, and Tai Chi.
Wow.
So I hope I said that right. So don't mess with mom. Apparently he didn't either. And he's also studied karate, wushu, and taekwondo, but he created his own distinct fight style for the character of Chirrut.
Mm-hmm.
So how crazy is that?
Wushu is the form that
Ray Park?
Yeah, Ray Park uses, and it's all about animals. I think it's really cool.
Huh.
Yeah.
Like embodying jaguars or something?
Well,
there's like a monkey.
Oh.
Yeah, I know there's like a monkey, and then there's like some kind of cat. But no, there's different ones. There's different, and when they used to have Star Wars weekends, when he did the training with him and he brought all the little kids up, he would teach them different wushu moves.
Oh, and you fell in love.
Yeah, that's how I know wushu is simply by him teaching kids. Ray Park teaching kids how to do wushu. So which was one of the best shows that they ever did. I wish they would take that to Celebration because he's so good with kids.
Well, they did. Incredible. They had it at Celebration 4 in Los Angeles. That was the first time I saw him.
Oh, man. That's the one I didn't go to.
Oh, you mean I've been to a Celebration you haven't?
Yes, you have.
Whoa. Mind blown.
Maybe they'll let Ray Park and Donnie Yen do a stage show on like stunt fighting, and they'll let
oh my god, that would be so amazing.
Chirrut fight Darth Maul.
Yes. Oh my god. And since Chirrut's like my favorite from Rogue One, like I'm gonna have to wear a shirt that's like half Chirrut and half Maul. I'm like cheer on both sides.
I don't know. Did you guys notice, like, in that amazing fight sequence that he does in Rogue One, that he always is, someone's like, oh, how did he take down all the stormtroopers? But he's always getting them in their vulnerable parts. He's using the staff to get them, in like the neck where they don't have cover, or an armpit or a knee where there's a vulnerability. So I thought that was just really cool in the way it was done. And then he had to pretend like he didn't see the people, which he had to think about, because typically when you're doing fight sequences, a lot of it's about the eye-to-eye combat. If you watch martial arts movies especially from China and Japan and stuff like that, a lot of it's about the expressions that are exchanged, not just the motion of the fight. So he had to approach it a little differently. So I appreciate all he did for that.
He Rafiki'd them.
And he also had the best line in the movie when they put the bag over his head. Are you kidding me?
I'm blind.
I do love that part. That's one of my favorite parts. And then there's Jiang Wen, who we didn't get to see as much of, but I felt like he was the anchor, and we learned some key things about that character, Baze, from Chirrut himself, when he's like, you were the most dedicated guardian, and in the way that Baze responds to Chirrut. But when I was actually rating the bios for these actors, and I didn't know who they were, and I'm reading about Jiang Wen, this guy is, I'll describe him to you. He's essentially an internationally respected screenwriter, and if I were to describe him, he's the Chinese version of George Lucas meets James Cameron, who can also act in his films.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, this guy, he's a writer-director. The movie he took to Cannes Film Festival and got an award, second place in the Grand Prix. The Chinese government, their film board, said he wasn't allowed to take it. His Japanese people who were financing it didn't want him to show the movie because it was about the war between China and Japan during World War II, and no one liked it. But he took it anyway. It was in black and white. It was too long for what you would say a movie, and it was just awarded the second place there, which is like crazy to think. And then after they showed it, the Chinese representatives came and tried to take it back. The film, like, you can't have it. So this is like crazy. Like, this guy is got way. I mean, he in a way is Baze. He's just gonna do what he's gonna do and fire on all cylinders. But one of the really cool things I found out was researching. He directed Hayden Christensen in an anthology called New York, I Love You.
Oh, I saw that. Wait,
yes.
So he did the scene with Hayden Christensen?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and also Natalie Portman directed a scene in that. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that was kind of crazy. But I mean, this is crazy. And then also Let the Bullets Fly at one point in 2010 was the highest grossing domestic film in China for 2 years. So that's why I'm saying he's like George Lucas and James Cameron, who can act in his film. So I have gone out now and I'm seeking out stuff he does because it's really cool. Just like you didn't know he had directed our dear Anakin Skywalker.
Wow. Yeah. Did you see that?
What?
Watch New York, I Love You.
Yeah, it's probably not going to happen. I don't think my husband will let me watch anything that's called New York, I Love You. He's from Chicago, so that's not really something that will happen.
Well, it's not about sports.
House. Doesn't matter. It's not even about sports. Clearly, you have not been inducted into this world, Sarah. It's everything. It's everything.
If anything, I'm more into sports than Richard.
No, but I'm just saying, like with Chicago and New York, it's down to the way they walk.
Okay.
Like it's intense. But speaking of bays, and this was like, again, there's just been so much perfect timing lately. Mint and Box, which is a website, they actually found and pointed Jedi News to an article of an unproduced Disney Infinity figure that we got to see pictures of. And it was for the Rogue One release of the game, and it's bays. And in the article, it says it will soon be a year since projects around the game for Disney Infinity have been set aside. But it is via Twitter that we learned that before this abandonment, many projects were in progress, and in particular, the addition of figurines taken from Rogue One. Here's an overview of the first prototype of Baze Malbus, as well as an overview of its digital model. And so there's a picture of its actual physical model and then its digital model. And this thing is stunning. Mm-hmm. And I'm so pissed right now because I would have loved to have played this expansion to the game, and I'm so mad.
I know. They got his expression right, like totally.
Yeah.
Game aside, would you guys? I mean, why haven't they considered just making these?
Because I would just buy that.
Yeah,
I would.
I bought them all,
and display it,
and the game, and played the game a few times, and I still was buying the figures. So,
yeah,
I'm just saying. I think there's a market.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the figures were so well done.
They are. They're so cute. The design. I know. I'm so sad, but it will never be. We'll just have to save that picture and put it somewhere.
All right.
Yeah, you know what's going to happen is they're going to release. Somebody's going to find a picture of what Hera was going to look like.
Oh, they did.
Oh, that's right. They did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They did.
It's amazing.
I know. Well, maybe to lift everyone's spirit, we'll do a giveaway.
Okay. I think that sounds good.
All right. Well, for one lucky listener who's listening to this episode and follows the directions, there is a Rogue One special edition Fandango gift card in your future. So all you have to do is tweet a picture of yourself listening to Fangirls Going Rogue with the hashtag Going Rogue with Fangirls Going Rogue, and that's at FG Going Rogue. There you go. And you will be in the running for one of those gift cards. And then pay attention to our new Facebook group page, and there'll be another one given away there.
Exciting. All right, so look for that giveaway. And now, roll it, Rob Dellinger.
Sidious, Anakin, Luke and Leia, Qui-Gon Jinn, C.O. Bibble, Kylo Ren, Salacious Crumb, Bib Fortuna, Boba Fett, Amidala, Wicket, R2-D2, BB-8, I can barely keep it straight. It's a character discussion. It's the Fangirls on character. It's a character discussion.
All right, as always, we are to our segment where we have a character that we want to talk about. So for this episode, with all of the Rogue One funness and being at a point where we just really feel like we need to honor a girl, we're going to talk about Jyn Erso for this episode. And we've talked about her, we've talked about Felicity Jones, and we've talked about that stuff. But for this one, I want you guys to give me your favorite Jyn Erso moment from Rogue One. That's my first question for you. And see, here's the thing. I'm just peeling back the curtain for our audience members. We just write the character name, and then I challenge these guys to come up with stuff to say, and it's super fun. So it gives me time to talk because I don't go first. So
thanks for that.
You're welcome. It's part of my job on this show. It's one of the things I enjoy the most. So Tricia, favorite Jyn Erso moment, go.
Favorite is probably when she whacks everybody with the shovel when they come to rescue her, and she's like, yeah, no, not doing that. So I call that the refusal of the call to adventure. If you were to look at it as a hero's journey, it's like, come with us. And she's like, yeah, no, I don't think so. So anyway, that's my favorite Jyn moment.
And Sarah?
Okay, this is my favorite Jyn moment. It's her speech. It's her speech she gives before everyone in that ship, Rogue One, go on the beach at Scarif, and she says,
"They have no idea we're coming. We'll take the next chance. And the next.
On and on until we win the day or we run out of chances." Like that right there, it totally gives me chills. And I just remember seeing this movie Rogue One for, I think, the third time and knowing what was going to happen to all these people that she's talking to and her. I started like crying right then, just as she's saying those words, because we all know that, you know, each of those moments, everyone has their moment and then they sacrifice themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. So mine is actually when just the whole thing of actually getting the Death Star plans, and she jumps through the big open giant glass window and has some Jedi skills to make it to the pillar. And then when she's up there on the tower with the satellite dish and just the way she's walking with the purpose of trying to do this and trying to accomplish it, and her showdown with Krennic, and she's like, "You know who I am. I'm Jyn Erso." And I'm just like, oh, you know. Now I realized she was saved by Cassian, and she probably didn't need to be, but I know if I were her, I'd be trying to stand my ground, but then I'd be like, oh, thank God. I've been like, because I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do this, and you just saved me from having to figure that out, so thanks. So I really like her. There's so many moments, but that's one of the big ones. Now, overall, how do you guys feel about Jyn as a character?
Well, I find it interesting. We've done some roundtables about Rogue One. We've gone around and asked who's everyone's favorite character, and hardly anyone says Jyn. And I'm wondering why that is. Like, a lot of people say Chirrut, a lot of people say K2SO. Not many people think that Jyn is their favorite character. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, for me, you know, she did her job that she was supposed to do, and she was the leader, but she didn't have as many, to me, sort of just outstanding blow your mind away moments that stood out, like you could recall instantly, like when you came out of the movie. And I think for me, that's sort of what makes a favorite character initially. Now, over time, I think my favorite characters will change as I watch this movie more and more, and it becomes a part of my home collection, and I'm just watching it. I think that my favorite character may change and it may shift to her. But I think for a lot of people, it was like, you're so overwhelmed on, like, initially, that you need those characters that have those big moments that sort of grab you. And I think if we're making a comparison, which you don't have to compare girl to girl, but I think Rey had more of those moments, because I know so many people, their favorite character was Rey. Mm-hmm. And she had some of those standout moments. Tricia?
I think that I've noticed that the same thing that Sarah's saying, and she's certainly not my favorite character. I actually had a hard time connecting with her. And I, as a storyteller, I look at, like, they never let her have that moment. Like when you talk about the Krennic at the end and then Cassian comes, they didn't give her the closure with Krennic. They gave her kind of a monologue, and then Cassian shows up. So I wanted to see something more, but they were saving that for Tarkin's moment. I kept feeling like they were cutting. There's so many times when a male character stops her from being who she is, that, you know, from the beginning, K2SO stops her from escaping, and then Cassian, you know, you're shocked, don't talk about this. He doesn't let her shoot Krennic or do whatever she's going to do. Chirrut actually grabs her hand when she's going to do something to Cassian in Edu after she realizes her father's dead. So I never felt like that character got to finish or have a really, and I feel like there's not an emotional through line that we can get through with her. I know that she had her moment with Cassian where she's like, okay, I am really mad at you and you tried to kill my father. But then we jumped to her giving this hopeful speech in front of everybody. And we never got to see her make peace with the rebellion that killed her father. So I just feel like there was a missing moment that let people kind of go through her story. It was all sort of by way of giving Galen a moment, everything. There were just so many little things that I just feel like she didn't feel whole. And we know that she was going to, and at one point she was more of like a thief and hardened. The first trailer kind of came, I rebel. It felt like they took the edge off that, and maybe to make her less aggressive, wanted more about hope. I don't know. I just felt like they were threading a line and they didn't let her be anything. Baze is, mad, and he's mad at the world, and he goes somewhere and he changes, and Chirrut wants to believe in the Force and he does it. And her through line is to finish what her father wanted. So that's why I didn't connect with her. I don't know why other people haven't listed her as a favorite, but I don't, Rey by comparison, or Luke by comparison, even Han Solo have something that we know from the beginning they want to obtain, and we follow it through. Princess Leia wants to stop bring peace to the galaxy and stop the Death Star in the New Hope. And so we have a thing for her. We even have a thing for Luke and a thing for Han in New Hope. I don't feel like they came out and said, what does Jyn want? And we're going to give it to her. They just said, this is who Jyn is. She's an orphan. And then they say, this is Jyn. She's in a jail. So we never had a reason to root for her other than our nostalgia reason of we need to stop the Death Star.
Right. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, there was a big connection problem, and it has nothing to do with Felicity Jones. It has to do with how they built her character and sort of like took us through the story with her. And I would agree that I wasn't connected to her, and like I wish I was, but I wasn't. Now it doesn't mean that Jyn's a bad character. She was great. It's just that there was I had a hard time connecting.
Yeah. Also, the fact that she never smiled, except for at the very end, that was my problem, I guess. But it does make a lot of sense that you don't know what she wants exactly.
Yeah, I mean that if you really look at the character, I don't think they ever really gave her that external goal outright that would make sense for the character, because you have an external goal and an internal goal, and it's not really a goal. It's just like, well, she's somebody. And then we go on with the story. And so that's kind of where, I think Felicity Jones did an amazing job with what she was given. And you could even see scenes like when they're in Jeddah and they pass the bag. She said she doesn't want K2SO to come with them because, she would shoot him. Like that's like more seems like the snarkier, more grim, maybe funny character that they had. And then they were always kind of wobbling between what she was going to be. So we couldn't really, I just didn't feel like we could grab hold of her, but I'm glad she was there, and I'm glad Felicity Jones played it, because that girl can eye act.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and she has a lot of eye acting.
She has stardust eyes as well. The hazel.
Yeah, she can do, when she's watching, that's another favorite scene, is the scene when with a hologram and she's watching it, because it wouldn't have worked without her really playing that, and you can see it. And that's one of my favorite moments for Felicity Jones in the movie itself. And I thought there was a lot of emotion in that moment. And so there were some really good things about Jyn. It's just, I felt like she just didn't have the oomph that some of the other female characters in Star Wars have had.
Agreed. All right. Well, as we end this character discussion, if you have any comments about Jyn, or how you feel, she was your favorite character, or if you agree with anything we said or even disagree, you can actually head on over to our Facebook page and join in the conversation over there and let us know. You can also reach out to us on social media. And I actually wanted to kind of throw this out there. I would love to hear y'all's opinions on what should happen with Carrie Fisher going into episode 9 and with Princess Leia's character. And then also how you are feeling about Star Wars Rebels. So join in the conversation with us. There's going to be a place for you to do that now over on Facebook. You can also interact with us at fangirlsgoingrogue.com. That's our website for the show. We are starting to post a little bit of more stuff over there, so hopefully there will be some content for you guys to see here shortly. You can Find us on Twitter. We are at FG Going Rogue. Tricia is at Fangirl Cantina. Sarah is at Jedi Tink. And I am at Ice Cold Penguin. Oh, and Sandra is at Geek Chic 9.
You can email us, contact@fangirlsgoingrogue.com. Facebook, just type Fangirls Going Rogue. Tumblr, fangirlsgoingrogue.tumblr.com.
And on Instagram, you can find us at FG Going Rogue. You can also reply to all those questions that we want you to answer in a voicemail. So you can call 331-21-EWOKS, which is 331-213-9657. And of course, you can also respond to that in our Facebook group. So please request to join Fangirls Going Rogue Facebook group. You just have to search Facebook for Fangirls Going Rogue.
Please go to iTunes and leave a positive 5-star review. We need your reviews. They are our lifeblood. So leave us an awesome review and tell more people about it. And more people will find us if you leave a review.
So until next time. Da, 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 da.
Yub.
Yub. Yub. Yub. 1, 2, 3, go.
Oh, of course. Well, yeah. Except for now I have a cat in my face. Hi. Go over here. Okay. Now, time to get excited.
Group hug!
I know.
That's why I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Crap. Okay. We had Kat Tabor on, who's the voice of Princess Leia and the clone. And no, wait. Oh, edit. Sorry. She was Leia in. Shoot, what did she do?
Video games.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, in the video games, and then she did it again for
Departure, not Departed. No,
Detours.
Detours. Departed. No, Leia wasn't in Departed.
That is not the same thing.
No.
Well, that's because Girl Scout cookies aren't good anymore. Wait, what?
Well, she sells them herself, so that won't work.
Oh, yeah. Although Cookie Monster still seems to think they're good. Or the new one, the s'mores one. Yeah, you know, so a total tangent. You can cut this out if you want, or keep it if you find it interesting. But the Girl Scout cookie people, they changed the people who actually make the cookies. And so now they're made different, which is why they taste different.
Oh. I know they're made like by different factories around the U.S. and they're actually called different things in different areas.
They are. Yeah, I think there was one that used to be the animal cookie. It was like called something, circus something. I don't know what it is, but now it has some other weird name. Anyway, this is your lesson in Girl Scout cookies.
The Samoa is the Caramel Delight in other places.
Yeah. Oh. Well, it's the Caramel Delight here.
Okay, see, it's the Samoa.
It is called Samoa in other places. I don't know about the shortbreads, if they're the same everywhere.
I love those shortbreads. Okay.
Those are the blue box ones.
Yes.
I think we need
some shortbread, some Girl Scout cookie shortbread, and some tea. And then we need to move on to...
We did it!